Thank you so much, Mr. Nokeren, for joining us. Now, $220 million, that's quite a lot of money. Is this the kind of intervention we need at a time like this?
So I think that it's a good initiative. The heart of the government and the partners are in the right place. Unemployment has really been a key issue in Nigeria for several years. We have over 600,000 graduates annually, and job placement has always been an issue for them. So the initiative is laudable. The critical consideration, however, will be the structure of implementation. We also currently have a couple of other programs, some directed towards the STEM, like CWES, that does some internship and training, what we call, the name escapes me now, but a sort of internship that people do when they're in university in their final years, but for the technical part. And we also know that the NYSC also offers some employment opportunities for graduates. So I think the critical consideration is to see how we can integrate all this and, manage the funds that's been raised well. I like the fact the government is saying that this is not a handheld program, it's an investment, and the investment, the productivity expectation should also be clearly defined so that participants in the project and the general public can actually see the benefits accrued from such an endeavor.
I'd like to know what the main goals of the Nigeria Jubilee Fellows Program 2.0 are, and how are we sure it's hitting its intended targets of actually addressing unemployment in Nigeria?
So that's like I said earlier, that's really the critical point in the conversation. The structure of management, the structure of implementation needs to be clearer for the country, for people involved to actually understand what they're trying to achieve. The initial program, this is the second phase of the program. The initial program was in 2021 and placed a couple of people in jobs. But then we have to also review how did those particular job placement translate into improved productivity in the country. We have an avalanche of graduates annually in the country, and the placement in terms of getting experience, learning is very important. However, the structure of the placement is also as important because we do not want to dabble into another rent exercise where when people earn salaries for being available for academic success, and then we are now struggling to translate that into productive transition. There are a couple of programs by the government, even under the Ministry of Youth Development, that are aimed to help and empower, youths in their entrepreneurial pursuit. I am of the opinion that this current scheme, in its own way, can serve to harness and merge sort of like a nexus for all the other empowerment programs directed at the youth. But we have to have a clear framework of how it's going to be done. It should not be a rent position where they just graduate high stakes and then they get salaries and they're placing good jobs. How does that trickle down to productivity, when we can equally harness some of the funding that we're going to get from this into improving the CWES program so that more technical adeptness is provided for graduates, and then employers actually have a transition period of monitoring, and not as a graduate who cannot sustain it would not have to after 1 year tenure they'll be on their own. So I think the structure of implementation needs to be very clear.
Now, what role does the European Union and United Nations Development Program, UNDP, play in this initiative?
Well, I believe that their role is actually to help provide funding, guidance, and also the structure of implementation. The UN and the EU are committed to providing funding for the project because they are concerned as Africa's most populous nation and a very, very big regional force in terms of economy and trade. It is important for the country and for the world as a whole that Nigeria does well, and our unemployment rate is actually quite alarming. Even with the recent restructuring of how we measure unemployment, that reduced it to single-figure digits, it still is alarming in terms of the productivity expectations, from the sector. So their involvement, their partnership is most welcome. But the structure and implementation is really what we should be concerned about, and we would like to have more information.
All right, I must express my gratitude to you for having this conversation with us.